Hello again, it's Rock. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Torchlight 3's early access, and this is for the Forged in combination with the Cold Hard Relic subclass. I decided to call it the Spinning Iceball Forged plus Cold Hard build, and as the name suggests, it is a spin to win build, but can be set up to use bunches of punches with a rapid strike. You can check the timestamp in the description below if you want to skip ahead to certain parts of the video. And before I do some overview of the skills, I would like to tell you more about the build, and unfortunately this build most likely would feel underpowered when you play it, and that's for a good reason. First of all, there are some bugs, some things are broken. For example, Snowstorm has two bugs. One bug makes Snowstorm a little stronger because it freezes for 10 seconds instead of 2 seconds. Another bug with Snowstorm is the 100% chance to critically hit tier 3 bonus when hitting frozen enemies does not actually do 100% chance, it's more like 40% chance to critically hit frozen enemies. And apart from that, there's something that's not broken but hopefully gets rebalanced, and that's the terribly bad cooldown of Frost Skin. Frost Skin has 70-second cooldown. It can be reduced down to 35 seconds when maxed out, and you need Frost Skin to be able to proc Breaking Point, and if you're proccing Breaking Point every 35 seconds or 70 seconds, it's not gonna compare damage wise at all to any of the other relics, be it Spread of Death, be it Magma Burst, be it Lightning Strike, Thunder Strike, be it Firestorm, be it Rupture. All of those procs are much better damage wise compared to Breaking Point. They proc much more often, they do decent damage, and hopefully the developers just reduce the cooldown of Frostskin so this can be a stronger build. Now I'm gonna start with the skills first. And now let's talk about the skills. First of all, I'd like to mention I've got Barrage skills plus 2 levels from my set items, and I've got Bro skills with plus 2 levels from my set items. More about gear later, but you would want to wear the Mountain King's helmet, the Mountain King's gauntlets, and the Mountain King's shoulders to get the plus 3 set, 3 pieces bonuses for the plus 2 skill levels. And you would want to put the Mountain King cuirass in the Legendarium together with the arc-powered shoulders and with the Wide World Cave Breaker. Right now I'm wearing those because I don't have the Mountain King shoulders, I couldn't drop them, and I'm wearing this because, well, I needed the 3 set bonus and I didn't have anything else to wear. Ideally you would be wearing blue armor, keep that in mind, but more about this later on. And yeah, let's quickly show you the skill levels. 4 points into Sonic Pulse plus the 2 extra points gives us the tier 2 bonus for 10% relic energy recharge rate, which stacks very nicely with the 25% relic energy charge rate from Energizer. Now on the bro side of things, I've invested 4 points into Rapid Strike to get the plus 20 bro skill damage bonus, which boosts Cyclone mode, Vortex Bomb, and ramming robots damage. We don't use Rapid Strike as a damage skill, but if you want to, you can put it here. The basic attack I don't use. It's there because, well, I had an empty slot and I didn't have anything else to put. Then we're maxing out Van Vortex Bomb, it's great. The tier 1 bonus is amazing, although it kind of is a little bit broken because this double armor, first of all it should say probably double defense, for consistency with other things that refer to the defense as defense instead of armor. Second of all, this does not increase the physical. It does not increase the physical armor. I'm gonna quickly demonstrate this. Check out my defenses. 40, 66, 45, 53. 40, 93, 50, 65. So everything increased except for my physical. So they hopefully would fix this, because if you're going for physical defense build, this is not fair to you if it doesn't give you the bonus. So one thing that hopefully would get fixed before launch. So another thing I would like to mention The tier 3 bonus is amazing, the tier 2 bonus is amazing as well. So Vortex Bomb is all round amazing skill to max out in this build. Cyclone mode we're maxing out. The minus hit cost is good because it allows us with just 3.6 seconds cooldown on Vortex Bomb to be able to spam it for long enough before this is ready, before we fill up the hit bar. If you want faster cooldown on Vortex Bomb, you need to invest into Fracking Strike tier 2. Right now 3.6 seconds is with the plus 10% cooldown reduction from here. Without that it's gonna be higher. And you can get items with cooldown reduction for Vortex Bomb, and it's gonna help you if you want it faster. This tier 3 bonus is amazing, the tier 2 bonus is also amazing, so Cyclone mode perfect for the build. This one we're keeping at tier 1. If you want to be stacking block chance with evasion, you can go for evasion in the gear and then not use a shield maybe and use a focus item or use a two-hander and then get this tier 2 bonus. With this tier 2 bonus you can keep your block chance maxed out when you play it the right way. The limit is 40% block chance, 40% evasion. If you focus your gear on evasion, you can get the 40% block chance from this if you play it the right way, if you use Fracking Strike for example. And Fracking Strike is another thing you can use instead of the basic attack if you want to stack this, but it's a different build, so I just rather not confuse people, so I didn't put it in the skill bar. And then Ramming Robot, I'm just taking the tier 1 bonus. You can rework the skills, there's some flexibility if you want to get damage through relic skills, if you want to do more damage with Snowstorm, with Ice Shield and Cold Front. And Ice Shield actually does very decent damage, so it could benefit from this. Now with Sonic Pulse you can see I've got it at level 6 with my plus 2 levels, and the cooldown is 9.8, whereas the duration is 6 seconds. If you max out the skill and get 1 or 2 items with cooldown reduction for Sonic Pulse, you can probably get this at 100% uptime. So it's up to you whether you want Sonic Pulse to be better or whether you want other things. Now let's move on to the relic side of things. Ice Shield I strongly recommend maxing out. Snowstorm I strongly recommend maxing out, and I recommend maxing out Energizer. I also recommend going for tier 2 Cold Front at least, but if you don't like the knockback you can just stop at level 2, so you don't get the tier 1 knockback that pushes the enemies away from you, which is very bad synergy for this build. But unfortunately the developers are not giving us an option to disable certain bonuses. For example, if someone wants to get level 10 Cold Front for all the damage that you can get, and for the icicles that get added with the tier 3 bonus, and freezing for 3 seconds with the tier 2 bonus, but doesn't want the tier 1 bonus, I would really love for the developers to make a system where we can disable some of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 bonuses that we don't think are good for our build, but still benefit from the increased damage from leveling up a skill. So this and this is currently where the build feels weak and underpowered. Breaking Point is fine. Breaking Point by itself is a good skill, but it relies on proccing Frost Skin breaking. And that only can happen once every 35 seconds. And that means every 35 seconds you're doing that. By default, if it's at level 1, it's 100%. If you max it at level 4, it's 141%, something like that. And it's not gonna be worth it if you're only doing this damage every 35 seconds. But if they change the cooldown of Frost Skin, the whole problem is solved. Because, for example, compare this to Thunder Strike, compare this to Firestorm, compare this to Magma Burst, to Rupture, to Spread of Death, which are amazing good procs that can happen much more than once every 35 seconds. Sometimes you can proc some of those things more than once within a single second, or more than like 3, 4, 5 times within 2 seconds intervals with builds like this. So this is definitely the weak link here, and it's not Breaking Point that's weak, it's Frostskin's cooldown that's unreasonably high. It's 70 seconds by default, 35 seconds when maxed out at level 5. This is super unreasonable. For example, if this one was 10 seconds by default, 5 seconds when maxed out, or 15 seconds by default, 7.5 seconds when maxed out, it would have been a little bit different. So I really hope that this somehow reaches the developers and they consider making Froskin with less of a cooldown. And after all, it would provide decent survivability, because right now only every 35 seconds blocking a single damage for 5 points invested, where with this one, even with 1 point invested, you get every 20 seconds 3 damage sources broken. Not broken but ignored, and also you get some damage, and you also get when you upgrade this longer duration, and you also get piercing and the pet spawning icicles. You can see where I'm getting this gives you so many things, even as a 1 point skill, whereas this as a 1 point skill is only gonna be 70 seconds cooldown on Froskin, and it's super underpowered compared to the other relics. And I just think instead of nerfing the other relics, this needs a little bit of a buff, actually not little, a big buff. So I think 10 seconds default, 5 seconds when maxed out would be amazing. It's not gonna make someone super overpowered. But if they don't like it, okay, then maybe 20 seconds default, 10 seconds when maxed out could be fine. But again, breaking point is really weak if this doesn't have a short cooldown. It really is weak, even though breaking point does seem to proc from those 3 sources of damage breaking. I think compared to other builds, it would not be overpowered if this is 10 seconds and then 5 seconds when maxed out. It's not gonna make you super invincible, but it's also not gonna make you super damage dealing. So I think it's a good balance if they fix this. So for now, you might want to not put the points here and have 9 points. With those 9 points you can probably put 4 more points here and have 5 more points. Maybe you can put some points into this one to get the Danged Relic skills, or maybe you might want to put points here, or maybe you might want to put points into Sonic pools. I will be providing in my website, and on the screen you should have already seen some other suggestions of how to spend the skill points. Energizer is great. And it really stacks nicely with an extra 10% here for 35% relic energy charge rate, and you can get even more from items to get like 40, 45, 50% relic energy charge rate. Keep in mind you're not going to be spending the relic energy quick enough with Snowstorm, so if you want you can put 1 point into Ice Golem so you can spend the relic energy a little bit quicker, or 1 point into Frost Blast just so you can dump that energy so you can build Cold Front faster. And that's gonna be okay if you go for a max level Cold Front build and you want to maximize Cold Front's DPS. Then I would strongly suggest instead of the basic attack to maybe put Frost Blast or the Golem. Right now I prefer playing the build by focusing on Snowstorm, and instead of having Cold Front maximized, to have Snowstorm stay for as long as possible, meaning not wasting the energy with other skills, so I can keep this damage buff of 25% and the chance to freeze, and also you critically hit frozen enemies while Snowstorm is active for as long as I can. The problem here is that you critically hit frozen enemies while Snowstorm is active is broken. The same way the critical chance shrine is broken, and instead of giving you a 100% crit chance for the duration of the shrine, or 100% crit chance versus frozen enemies while Snowstorm is active, you only get 40%, which is the cap. They made recently a cap of 40% to crit chance, and this broke certain things that were supposed to give you 100%, certain things that were supposed to give you extra crit chance, such as Ghost Visage and so on. So hopefully before the launch things like this get sorted, so people don't get tilted for things like that. So once this is sorted, once this is rebalanced and made quicker to recharge, I think this build would be a very amazing synergy of spinning, doing the icicles around you, those icicles that also shoot from your pet, and if you're in the same place, it's nice. While you're spinning and while the pet is and you're shooting icicles, you can vacuum enemies close to you. You can make them take more damage if you want with this. You can heal yourself and give yourself some extra defense, and you get extra defense from Vortex Bomb, stacking it with Sonic Pulse. And it works well, it works amazingly well, and you have Snowstorm at that same time, freezing enemies around you, giving you extra crit chance to frozen enemies. And it's actually a pretty nice synergy when you add the Frost Novas that also help with freezing enemies, and with that Frost skin. I think it's a build that needs just a little bit of tweaking to certain skills from the devs to actually start shining. Right now it could be underpowered, and you might be better off playing Electrode Spin to win, even a Poison or Bleeding or Fire Spin to win. Anything but this could be stronger. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this build, hopefully what I said helps you realize what you want to do with it. Now let's talk about the Legendarium. As I said, White Vault's Cave Breaker is very good for any type of build that has multiple fast hits per second, which Cyclone mode and Rapid Strike and Rapid Fire definitely fit into that category. So whether you're using Cyclone mode or Rapid Strike, because this build can be reworked. You can put 4 points into Cyclone mode and 8 points into Rapid Strike and have a bunches of punches version of the build without a problem. It works just fine that way too. So you want the White Vault Cave Breaker there, you want the arc-powered shoulders there, and you want the Mountain King Cuirass. That's my 3 top choices for the Legendarium. But to have the Mountain King Cuirass and benefit from it, you need to have 3 pieces of the set, and I would suggest using the Mountain King helmet, gauntlets and shoulders. Do not use Mountain King wheel. Mountain King wheel would fuck up the build, it would ruin the build. It would give you 50 hits when you're venting, and you don't want to build hit this quickly, because when Vortex Bomb has long cooldown. Of course, if you change to Fracking Strike, this is a different build, and then you would want to be using the Mountain King wheel, but that's a different build for another time, which I'm probably gonna make after the launch. I do have a similar one from some time ago though, and I would not suggest using the Mountain King hatch. So more about gear later, but hopefully it's clear. A White Vault Cave Breaker, and then you're using the Arc Powered Shoulders and the Mountain King Chest Cuirass in the Legendarium. For the pet skills, I did something that I normally don't do with this build. I normally would go for Deadlier Strikes as an aura, but I decided to play it safe, since I can get a lot of crit chance from other sources such as the Mountain King Gauntlets, and I decided to go for Aura Defender. Why, you might ask? This is 15% crit chance, why would you wanna not get the 15% crit chance? Just think of it that way. When I vent 75 or more hit, I get overheated and I get 10% crit chance. Now let's quickly demonstrate my crit chance. It's right now at 21%, because well, this gives me crit chance, which is fine. Imagine I don't have this 10% crit chance. Let's just do it with something that doesn't give me crit chance, such as this one. Let's say I'm at 11, let's say I'm at 0. I'm gonna remove this that gives me crit chance, and this one gives me 5.7. So let's quickly show you something. So I have to vent 75 or more hit. Boom, I've got some crit chance now. And boom, I've got some crit chance now. And now I'm at 26% with this 2 stacks of that. So I'm at 26% just from this. And if I put this, and if I put the weapon that I was wearing, now things are looking different. Now things would be, you see, I'm venting and I am at 40%, so I'm maxing the crit chance. This gives you 20% crit chance. So combine that 20 with this 5.7 and with this 5.3 and with some crit chance from a weapon, and I don't really need that extra. And if you consider things like a wood beast hatch, which I wouldn't suggest wearing, but it's not a bad choice if fighting goblins. In fact, if you're farming, you might wanna switch between wood beast and other different things that give you crit chance for the hatch. It's not a bad choice, but more about gear later. So that's why I decided to take the Aura Defender instead of Deadlier Strikes. And that 25% defense is amazing. It's just top-notch for builds like this if you want to survive more, if you want to be more tanky, and if you want to stack this extra defense with the extra defense this gives you, and with the extra defense this gives you. And if you want to take things even further with the defensiveness, you can put defensive posture. I'm using Battle Cry and I'm using Immobilizing Strike because I like the enemies to get rooted and not run away from me, but you might want to remove this or this. I strongly suggest keeping Healing Friendship on any build. So whereas the other things could be changed, this could be input for stun instead of immobilize, or this could be replaced with this, or this could be replaced with this. Any case you want to do it. You might even want to get movement speed instead of the defense. It's entirely up to you. You might even want to get block chance. I strongly suggest not getting rid of Healing Friendship. And I think that's it for the skills. A little bit longer than it needed to be, but I hope the information was helpful to some of you out there. Now let's talk about the gear and the items and affixes I recommend for this build. And here we are at the segment where I'm going to talk about the gear and the items I recommend taking when using this build. It's very important to know you must have 3 pieces of the Mountain King set. And one of those pieces needs to be the helmet, another of those pieces needs to be the gauntlets, and the third piece I would recommend using the Mountain King shoulders. It would fit very well, and then you can swat the Mountain King cuirass, the chest armor in the Legendarium, you can swat the arc powered shoulders in the Legendarium, and you can swat the Wide World's Cave Breaker mace in the Legendarium, and that leaves you the opportunity, the option to get a blue chest armor with flat damage. If you're lucky, it can be flat damage and crit damage, it can be flat damage and percent damage, but you want that flat damage. Flat damage is great boost for the DPS of any build, and the chest and leg armor, in this case chest and locomotion armor, can give you that flat damage. You also want a blue locomotion with flat damage. I couldn't get lucky enough the past 4 days of farming and leveling this build, so I didn't get a locomotion with flat. So if you can get one with flat, try to get one with crit chance and some defenses. But if you don't need the crit chance, if you're already capping it with the Mountain King gauntlets and maybe crit chance from a weapon and a helmet, maybe the pet aura, you can just try and max out the defenses and get as much defenses as you can, and just switch between poison, fire and lightning based on what you're doing with the locomotion. There are options. There's also damage versus Voltura. There's damage versus goblins, there's damage versus undead, damage versus whatever else there, like Hive It. And you might want to switch between those as well, because 2000 damage versus Voltura is definitely gonna be a good boost. And I think this goes to 2300 or 2200 or something like that at level 60. So definitely not something to underestimate. If you know you're going into a Voltura map, get damage versus Voltura equipped. If you have damage versus Hive It, you know you're going into a Hive It map, well, you might want to equip the Hive It damage locomotion. But yeah, you definitely would want the regular flat damage that's good against everything on the chest piece, on the locomotion. And there's something to mention about hatch armor. The hatch armor can give you percent elemental damage, not flat, percent. What do I mean by percent elemental? It's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% ice damage or fire damage and so on. And if you, for example, let's take this weapon. It's wife bound, so it's very strong because it's wife bound. But let's take this weapon. it having poison damage and then more poison damage. And then at the bottom, unfortunately, since it's one-handed, I couldn't get poison. I've gotten ice. So let's say I had a chess piece with poison, and then I had a locomotion with poison. Then I get a hatch with percent poison. That would have been a very good combo. So keep that in mind. Percent elemental damage is good if you have a good base to boost. But don't underestimate crit damage. Crit damage caps at 300%. So try to get it as close to the cap as you can. If you can get the cap, even better. You know, this build doesn't need that much crit chance from gear using the Mountain King Gauntlet, so you can try and stack some more crit damage. Ideally you would have a hatch with percent elemental and percent crit damage, and you cannot get percent elemental on legendary gear, only on blue gear. So you have to decide, do I want a legendary one with just crit damage and more defenses and some other stats, or do I want to get a blue one which probably would have less stuff on it, but could give me at least the crit damage. There's choices to be made. You can now think about the one-handed or two-handed setup. You want to go for two-handed, which gives you a little bit more crit chance. I'm not sure why I've got pistols with crit chance. Maybe that's something new. Maybe pistols can roll with crit chance. It's the second one I've got while leveling up this hero. So maybe that's something new, but how it used to work is two-handed weapons used to be the ones that can roll crit chance, and one-handed couldn't roll crit chance. I'm not sure why. Maybe that's a bug, maybe it's a new change that's coming with the patch. They didn't mention anything with the previous patch notes about one-handed gear rolling with crit chance at the top. So don't count on this, because it could be bug. So two-handed gear has slightly different way of rolling affixes. Two-handed gear can give you 2 times the same type of flat damage. So you can have ice damage at the bottom and another ice damage at the bottom. Or maybe have ice damage at the bottom and get ice damage as a socket. On one-handed you cannot get, for example, the same damage as a socket if you've got it in the middle. So in the middle I've got poison damage. I can get anything else but poison as a flat socket. But in the middle you can get poison damage and ice, and then get fire in a socket, or poison damage and electric, and get fire or ice or whatever in the socket. So I would suggest go and get as much flat as you can. If you can get all of the affixes being flat damages, then look for flat and crit damage, flat and crit chance, things like that. You can also look for damage to bro skills, damage to Cyclone mode, damage to Vortex Bomb. Those are great affixes. On certain, I'm gonna speak about affixes in a bit more. Just give me a little bit more to explain about weapons, and then we're gonna go about suggested affixes. Now, if you're going for a shield, you would want something with flat defense at the top and block chance. There are shields that only give you block chance at the top. You would want to avoid those if you want to go for a shield, and get a shield like this one that gives you defense and block chance at the top. Then at the bottom it could be different types of defenses, it could be more block chance, but you would ideally want a socket as well. Blue gear and legendary gear only get one socket, keep that in mind. Now, other things to keep in mind would be the cannon is very specific. You don't have to use this cannon I'm using. Any cannon will do as long as the cannon gives you a nice utility bonus. You're not using cannon as a damage source. You don't care about flat damage, crit chance, crit damage, chance to poison, chance to freeze. All of those things on a cannon are useless for this build. What is good for this build is cooldown for a certain skill, damage with a certain skill. What else is good is minus relic energy cost. Another thing that is good is plus relic energy recharge rate. Those things, even though it's a cannon, apply to your hero in general. So even if you're not using the cannon as a damage source and you don't care about damages from it, you can benefit from cooldown reduction. Just an example, look at my ice shield. It's normally 20 seconds, but it's 18.8. And now it's 20, so this cooldown for Ice Shield is great, and this is a great place where you can decide whether you want cooldown for Ice Shield or cooldown for Sonic Pulse. I decided to go for a cannon with cooldown for Ice Shield, even though I've got one that gives me cooldown for Sonic Pulse, this one. So let's see the difference. Sonic Pulse now is 8.3 seconds, without those extra 9.4%. Sonic Pulse is 9.8. So that's definitely a 1.5 second shredded, but I'd rather shred 1.3 seconds of the 1.2 seconds of the Ice Shield cooldown, because it's a lot of good damage and survivability. Not that this won't give you damage. So again, look for some cooldown here, look for some damage boost to skills that you're using, and look for relic energy cost or recharge rate, things like that. For the pet, strongly suggest Drought Neckband, strongly suggest Token of Rapid Bartering if you're farming, if not maybe one of the Novas or maybe Invigoration. And I also love a Phoenix Token. If I see my pet dying often, I would suggest using a Phoenix Token. If you don't see the pet dying, then replace the Phoenix Token with something else. I'm gonna quickly show you good things about the pet to consider. So thing number 1 to consider, Token of Invigoration. Amazing, super good. Thing number 2 to consider, instead of Phoenix or instead of Bartering, would be Inferno or Clockwork Token. Clockwork is nice, it gives you Shock Nova when the pet uses active skills. Inferno is good every 8 seconds, triggering Fire Nova. And then there's also the Poison one, which can also work fine for you. And there's also the Ancient One's token, but you're not doing a minion build, so maybe it's not gonna work that great for you. But Contagion might not be bad. I would suggest using something like Invigoration plus one of the other ones I mentioned of your choosing, and sticking to that. But the stats you would want on the pet would be attack speed and faster cooldown for pet active skills. Those are the must-have things. Of course, chance to shock is not bad, chance to block is not bad, crit chance, crit damage is not bad, but faster attack speed means more healing. If you don't need the healing, of course, ignore the attack speed and get other things. Faster cooldown for pet active skills, I strongly recommend stacking as much as you can on those items. So hopefully this helps you with the gear. Again, a little bit longer than it needed to be, but there were a lot of things I wanted to mention. And now let's talk about certain affixes. I'm gonna quickly list some good affixes that you might want. On helmets, you might want to get +1 to skill level on a skill that you're using. Right now this gives me to the golem, and I don't use the golem, so it's kind of a waste. But that could give you an extra skill point, which could allow you to max out breaking point with that extra skill point. Crit chance, you want that there, and you might want certain things like energy regen or energy cost reduction on different pieces of equipment. You might want cooldown reduction for certain skills such as Sonic Pulse and Ice Shield. Again, you might want Brawl skill damage, you might want Cyclone mode damage, you might want Vent Vortex Bomb damage, Vent Vortex Bomb cooldown. Crit chance, crit damage, I would suggest focus on the crit damage rather than the crit chance with this build, because you can get it from mounting King's Gauntlets, that extra 20%, and the pet can also give you 15. Stack different defenses, of course, they are nice. Avoid basic attack, avoid chance to bleed, chance to poison, chance to burn. Chance to shock is amazing, do not avoid chance to shock, try to get it if you can. Avoid gold drops, and unless you're farming, avoid gear work, but if you wanna be farming, if you wanna stack gear work, that's not bad. Crit chance versus shocked if you're using shock. Crit chance versus chilled versus frozen, etc. not bad. But again, we've got a lot of crit chance, so I would avoid crit chance stuff myself and prefer to go for something else. Chance to block, chance to evade, keep in mind the limit is 40 on those, but they're not bad to stack. There's probably other stats that I might have missed. You might want to check the list on my website for things that could be good for the build. I'm probably gonna put some more stats there. but hopefully this helped you, and you can figure out some synergies with that. Now we're going to move to the gameplay segment, where I'm gonna show you the build in action and more gameplay footage. Now here we are at the gameplay segment, where I show you more of the build in action and talk about how I do some of the rotations. One of the more obvious rotations would be to lead in with ramming robot to position yourself nicely, start Snowstorm if it's ready, then start spinning, or maybe before you start spinning you can use Sonic Pulse, then start spinning, and as you're spinning, if needed, you can always activate power projection for defense, but I would suggest just activate Ice Shield and then Vortex Bomb and then keep spinning. So if we were to shorten it, so Snowstorm, Sonic Pulse, Ice Shield, Cyclone mode, and in the end Vortex Bomb and more Cyclone mode. Or you can do it by switching Ice Shield and the spin to win the Cyclone. So you can start with Snowstorm to increase your damage, then you can do Sonic Pulse to debuff the enemies to take more damage, then you can immediately start spinning, and while you're spinning you can activate Ice Shield, and after that you can use Vortex Bomb when it's ready and when it's at least over 75 hit, and then keep spinning. So that's just some ideas. There's many ways how to do it, but those are some of my preferred ways of doing it. Of course, keep positioning yourself with ramming robot, escape danger when it's needed, and so on. Overall, the build is not that difficult to play, like most spin to win builds in games are kind of more simple to play and they don't require too much thought on how to play it, but you can still avoid danger, you can still position yourself better, and you can still rotate the skills in a way that makes sense to maximize the DPS. And of course you shouldn't forget to use Cold Front whenever it's ready, especially when you're dealing with big packs of enemies or when you're fighting champions or boss enemies. So this pretty much sums up the build. If you'd like to get notified when I upload more content, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss the content update notifications. The content you would expect to see on my channel is builds and guides and info news videos, as well as other type of content for wooters of all sorts, RPGs, ARPGs, tactical RPGs, shooter wooters, and other things in between. Thanks for watching, keep it cool, struck up, and until next time.